I'll have to empower you to be able to do something similar. So during Ramadan, what kept you busy, Hasib?
During Ramadan, I think we get into a routine during Ramadan. We revolve our life around the prayers, and it's something that we concentrate a lot more on. But unfortunately, after Ramadan, we all have a tendency of going away from that and start revolving our life, not the prayers, and that's unfortunate. We break that routine, but things that we picked up during Ramadan, we should be doing for the rest of the year, and that's something everyone should follow. And fingers crossed, I should be doing that myself as well.
Absolutely, I think that's fantastic advice from you, Hasib. Today, our guest is Chris Cooper, who's an entrepreneur, business coach, author, radio host, and a professional speaker. And I am excited to have him here. And I'm also wondering how he manages to do so many things all at the same time. Hi, Chris. Can you hear me? Hello. Let's see where Chris is. While we find Chris, Hasib. Hi, Chris. Hello.
Hello, Chris.
While our co-pilot is looking for Chris, Hasib, are you reading any books at the moment?
At the moment, no, Shaz. Unfortunately, I'm not. I would like to read a book.
I think our...
What book would you recommend?
Our listeners, what book would I recommend?
Are you reading any book at the moment?
Yes, that's I've got 3 books on the go.
Oh.
There's a good one that I'm listening to at the moment, or re-listening to, by Malcolm Gladwell, which is Outliers, which is a fantastic book. And I'm also reading a book called Shortcut. It's a book about analogies, and the author's name escapes my mind. So if you're on really good behavior, I might let you borrow it, although my stance on giving people books to borrow, you never get them back.
That's happened before, Shaz.
It's happened many times. Hi, Chris.
Hi there. You're just making me smile there. I did actually manage to get one back today. It was a bit unusual.
Perfect. I thought we'd lost you for a while, but I'm pleased to have you here.
No, I'm here, yeah.
Fantastic. So I've already kindly introduced you, and in my introduction I said I am intrigued by how you managed to do so many things in one go. You're an entrepreneur, business coach, author, radio host, and a professional speaker. How do you find the time to do all these things, Chris?
And that's a really good question
entrepreneur, business coach,
to
author,
ask, Shaz.
radio
I
host,
think
and a professional speaker. How do you find the time to do all these things,
the reality of what I
Chris?
do is that whether I'm working with a business, which I usually am actually, either a small business or maybe department in a large business, is that my personal work is about helping others to realize their potential, whether that's a business or an individual or a group of individuals. And really the different mediums that I use and my business use might be consulting sometime, it might be training, it might be coaching, it might be that we reach people through our books or through the radio show. So actually they're just kind of modes of delivery of services. So I really do those. I have some things that I do, like the show, which happens every week and it's happened for 6 years, and we've got that quite down to a sort of slick process now. And then the other elements that we do are really related to what a client needs. So I'm doing those as required, or I'm speaking at a conference or event like you do when those opportunities arise.
Absolutely, and it's something interesting you mentioned there in terms of assisting, helping, enabling people to achieve their potential. So from all the work and the research that you've possibly done, why do people tend to underachieve or not achieve their potential?
I think probably there's a not the realization hasn't dawned on them that actually it's about taking responsibility. It's not about what the world has done to you. It's about where you can, looking at who you are, discovering and deeply by really taking the time out to think and to reflect and maybe to have some coaching and support to help you understand what is important in your life and where do you want to head and what's that vision like? And I think people maybe miss out on not having that vision and not maybe discovering what's important to them, and therefore unless you have a dream or somewhere to head, then you can end up going all over the place and at different tangents and doing different things. So I think it's about people not having discovered or taken the time to understand what's really important to them in their working lives, with their families, with their friends, and taking the time out to develop a plan and then to move forward towards it and not get disillusioned, because I think people do get disillusioned. There's a lovely quote by Tony Robbins that people, I think, really helps here. And what he said was that people significantly overestimate what they can achieve in a year, but they significantly underestimate what they can achieve in 10. Mm-hmm. So I think that taking a longer term perspective as well, and realizing that when you take action, it takes some time to, for the responses that you might want to come towards you.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with you on the vision front, because when I'm speaking to my clients or entrepreneurs and asking them where they'd like to be, say, in 3 years' time, they have absolutely no idea whatsoever. And my response to them thereafter is, if you don't know where you're looking to go, then how are you going to get there, and how will you ever know you've gotten there? So are there any things that you do to assist people in getting clarity over their vision?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's part, if we're doing an elevation program for a company, or I'm working with a leader or something like that, then, I get them to envision the future, and I've got various tools and things. But what I did first with this was, when I was 28 years old, I was working for Mars, the confectionery company at the time, and I hit a little bit of a crossroads. And I'd actually had a girlfriend for a number of years, and she found somebody else a little bit more attractive than me, Shaz. And
I can't believe that.
And she actually went off with the managing director of her company, and I was a bit gutted. And a friend of mine said, you need to go on this course. And I probably would have ignored them, but I really trusted them. So I went on this program. And it was the first real involvement I'd had in self-development. And I was absorbed in it for 3 days and had a huge impact on me. And when I came back, for the first time in my life, I sat down. I just bought a flat in London, which I'd completely broken myself to find the deposit on. And I'd borrowed a table from somebody, so I was on a wonky table and chair in an unfurnished flat. And I took a big piece of paper and I decided to write down what life would be like when I was 40.
Okay.
And at 28, I don't know, Shaz, how you felt when you were 28, or maybe any people who are as old as me sort of listening, but you can't actually imagine that you're ever going to be that old. Okay. So I could be absolutely ridiculous about what I wrote down. So I wrote down I wanted a beautiful house in the country. I had to be imagine this white house with lovely gardens and flowers, and a wife and a child and children. I wanted to have my own business. I wanted financial freedom, so I didn't need to worry about money. I wanted to play the guitar really well to my friends on my birthday. I wanted a dog called Barney. And the bizarre thing, by actually taking the time to put that down on paper, and I must admit I didn't look at it ever so regularly, but my life started to move that way. And at the age of 40, I was able to stand outside that house on my 30th birthday and read out that those things that seemed so ridiculous at the time, and incredibly they come true. So then at 40, I had to rewrite that again. And so I wrote what life would be like when I was 55, I think it was. And some of those things now, through the radio show, through having a book and that sort of thing, they've started to happen as well. And I think it kind of focuses your mind and you start working towards it and seeing opportunities. So I would recommend to people, just in terms of your vision, just take some time, but start to write down maybe a longer term vision about what would life look like when you're, if you were looking back at 85, Shaz, okay, and you were sitting there with your slippers, with maybe a mug of tea or coffee, and some rich tea biscuits and your Werther's Originals or whatever.
You know me too well.
But have a think back and think, if you were enjoying your life all over again, looking back on it, what would you have achieved? What would be the things that would have happened? Who would be around you? How would you have contributed? And start to write that down into a statement. And you can keep adjusting that and crafting it over time until you get to something that leaves you feeling really satisfied, and then you start from that point, and you start to move towards it by looking for opportunity and taking action.
I think that's fantastic advice, and from all the people who I've interviewed and the books I've read and the people I've met, in fact, Chris, the ones who are ultra successful tend to write down their goals and read, review, revise on a regular basis. So clearly there's a pattern here, isn't there?
I think there is, and I think in terms of kind of intentions so you've got that kind of vision of what you want, but in terms of intentions of the things that maybe are important to you this year, I do believe that sometimes people write down too many, or they don't think about maybe all the things that have an impact, like they include their relationships and their health and those things that can stop you, for example, your business moving forward or being fulfilled. And I think that people write down too many sometimes, then it becomes a bit overwhelming. And they might even have things in there which actually aren't really, when they deep down, when they think about it, they don't actually really want at all. So I think it's important to take that time to reflect on what's important, and then to remind yourself of those regularly, and to take action and create situations that mean you have to act and you have to move towards what you want.
And obviously we're all different and unique as individuals, but through your own experiences and your work, how many things on average should people write down?
Well, I think in terms of your vision, just you can write down half a page or whatever you want to. Just write down and get clear about the life that you would like. But I think probably in terms of your intentions for the next year, maybe write down about 6 or 7. Okay. and maybe cover in there something about health, because actually without it, we don't really have. We're limited. Maybe include in there some personal things about your family. But also around your business. Maybe if you've got a business, your own business, or you're in a company, get clear about the 5 or 6 things, 7 things, 6 things that by the end of the year, if you've achieved, then that will get you to where you want to get to. Now, it might be though that it's something as simple for you that's important. Maybe it's tidying up your house. You want to get into the habit of tidying your house because actually it's uncluttered. That might be something that makes a big difference to your year. For other people, it might be I want my business to be at £10 million turnover or something. But it's thinking about what's important to you and what will make the difference and take you towards what you want.
My wife is going to be a massive fan of yours, because when she hears that you're suggesting that I should tidy my house, I think she'll want to give you a call and thank you personally. Colin, Chris, so thank you very much for that.
Do you know the best way to do it?
I have no idea whatsoever.
Well, the best way, do you, I mean, not everybody can manage this, but do you have a cleaner?
I don't know. So
I find the best thing I've found is if you have a cleaner, and maybe you have a cleaner if you can, once a week or maybe twice a week, if you're fortunate obviously to be able to afford that. Not everybody can do, but what I find with the cleaner is if she comes on a Thursday and suddenly Wednesday night, it's like my wife and I, oh my goodness, the cleaner's coming tomorrow, and we're rushing around the house and we're putting things under the bed and we're putting things in the drawers and we're tidying up. And basically by the end of the Wednesday, with an hour, very focused time, we've got the house tidy enough for the cleaner to then be able to clean. So our cleaner actually, by paying her, she also holds us to account for tidying the house and doing it in a very focused manner. So I just find that combination of the two is really helpful. Having a busy family, a busy work life.
I can see that working really well. And I may even suggest that to my wife, although I'm pretty certain she thinks I am the cleaner. So once somebody's written down their vision, what would be the next step? Because sometimes people take the first step and then perhaps they find difficulty in the next step. So I think it'd be useful if you could share in your experience, what the next step should be.
You mean the vision, or are we talking about having set their goals or their intentions?
So somebody set their vision, they've got say 4 to 6 goals which they would like to achieve in the next 12 months, and they're thinking, okay, what do I do next?
Well, absolutely. I think what it helps to understand is the kind of psychology behind these, because the reason why we don't always get the goals done and follow through that we want to get done is sometimes, as our kind of like the lizard part of your brain, that sort of very basic part of your brain which really tries to avoid move towards pleasure and avoid pain. That part of your brain which, if you're trying to watch your diet or something, you suddenly find yourself in the cupboard eating biscuits and you hadn't kind of realized how you got there. What you have to try and do is realize that we don't necessarily follow through or naturally with the things we need to do. We follow through with the things we like to do, and we like to avoid, move towards pleasure and avoid pain. So there are lots of reasons why, like fear, like procrastination, like not being disciplined. I recently spoke to a wonderful group of very disadvantaged teenagers, and I asked them what gets in the way of you doing some of the things you want to, and one said the police.
Okay.
But we have to realise that our brain won't necessarily take us towards what we want. So what we have to do is we have to put in place strategies that mean that we act. So we let the situation that we put ourselves in do the heavy lifting. So it might be as simple as I want to tidy my house, so actually I get a cleaner, and that cleaner, because she comes, she puts me in a situation where I have to tidy the house. I have a bookkeeper. My bookkeeper, really all she does is she enters invoices into a system, but the actual fact that she comes and visits me once a month means I have all of my invoices ready for her to put into the system. It disciplines me to do something I don't really like doing.
Absolutely.
I have some amazing examples which we wrote in the book, The Power to Get Things Done, where people have done things like wanted to make sales calls, and as part of their intention, they wanted to make 5 sales calls a day, but they weren't doing it. So this was an American example, but this, I think, was an accountancy firm, a bit like yourself, one of the businesses you have, Shaz.
Okay.
What they did was he gave 5 $10 bills to his PA. And at the end of the day, they would sit down together and work out what calls he'd made. And for any calls he hadn't made, they'd put a $10 bill through the shredder. And for him, the fact that his $10 bill was going through the shredder in front of him, it was enough for him to realise, actually, if I make a call, I actually save $10.
Being an accountant, that must have been trauma for him, Chris.
Yeah, it was trauma for him.
I can relate to that.
So that was enough to get him to act and move forward. A beautiful example I love, a friend of mine, Mette Block. She's a lovely lady from Denmark and a twice world champion rower and a speaker. And Mette set an intention that she wanted to add more humour into her speeches, and she does a huge amount of speaking because of her celebrity status in her country. And Mette, what would you do, Shaz, if you wanted to add more humour into your speaking, do you think? How would you maybe learn to do that?
I would watch more comedy on TV, or go and watch live comedy. I'd also read books, and if possible, I would try to find somebody who I thought was funny and try and persuade them to mentor me if possible.
Brilliant. And I think I would probably do something similar, but that wasn't what Mette did. What Mette did was she booked a 1,635-seat conference hall in Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen.
Okay.
She advertised herself doing a one-woman stand-up comedy show. She sold out every single seat in the venue, and then had 5 months to learn how to do stand-up comedy.
That's called committing, isn't it? That's how to do it. Yeah, fantastic.
That's burning your bridges, isn't it? That's it. There's no way back from that.
Absolutely.
It was that national embarrassment if she didn't follow through and do it. So then, of course, she had 5 months to really focus her mind, and then took the opportunity to learn, and with a pretty serious and quite scary goal at the end of it, and it was a huge success. So what I recommend to people, we've all got different things and that will motivate us to act. So it will vary by you, but think of some creative ways, whether it's taking on a coach or someone to hold you to account, or if it's your health. One of my friends, he wrote a £500 check out to a political party that he just could not stand, and he gave it to a friend and said, if it's this, we'll have a weigh-in at the end of October, and if I've not lost so many stones in weight and aren't below this weight, you to post that check, and then I would also be a political donor registered on the sort of business donations, political donations list. So he then had to go and do this weigh-in, and that £500 and giving it to his friend was enough for him to get into action. So you can get quite creative with this as well.
Absolutely. I can see the appeal. If you've just joined us, welcome and thank you for joining us. You're listening to Inspire FM on 105.1 FM and Salaam Radio on 106.2 FM. I'm delighted to be interviewing Chris Cooper, who's an entrepreneur, business coach, author, radio host and professional speaker. And he's been sharing some fantastic insights with us. I will now pass you over to Hasib, Chris, who will be asking you a few questions.
Hi there, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Hasib. I'm wonderful, thank you. How are you?
No, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining the show. Chris, as I was reading on your website earlier on, you mentioned emotional intelligence. I'd like to ask you, what is emotional intelligence and how much of an impact does it have have that on your life and kind of impact on our life?
So it's a great question, that. I think, emotional intelligence, I think is I'm just trying to think now that, a good definition of it, but it's really, I think, about that awareness of people around you and their, how we work and our sort of thoughts and feelings, and how really to effectively behave with others and to help you to get the results that you desire from your work, from your life, for other people. So I think it's kind of an awareness, a self-awareness and an intelligence about people and our connectedness and how we operate and how we behave. And I think there's a lovely example, a lovely thing that I read. It was in a book called The Speed of Trust by Stephen M. R. Covey. And what Stephen said is that people judge themselves by their intentions. However, so, about the things that they're going to do. But however, everybody else judges them by their behavior and the things that they see. And there's often a distance and a gap between our intentions and the way that we behave. And I think through emotional intelligence, we kind of understand that more effectively through our awareness, and we go through life a bit more, effectively in the dealings with others. And we don't always get it right. It's often about trying things. I think what I tend to find it very helpful with is things like, rapport building. So, how to maybe adapt my body language and my conversation to somebody else's speed and pace in a way that we're kind of mirroring and matching each other's, like two people dancing on a dance floor, so that we actually get on better rather than somebody speaking at high speed and somebody very, very slow. And the other things may be finding out what people are interested in and finding the common differences between ourselves and how we I think, I don't know in terms of maybe interests that you have, but we probably, if we delve deep enough, we probably got some things in common that we really share, like radio, for example, and those things can connect us together. So I think that whole area of people, there's a great benefit in emotional intelligence and understanding behavior for sales, for anybody who kind of works in business, for dealing with your kids. I mean, crikey, that's a real art in itself and a minefield at times. But maybe, does that give some kind of an insight and understanding?
No, thank you for that. That's a brilliant answer. Thank you very much for that. We might not have enough time, because before we go on a break, to answer this question. But what's the most satisfying thing about your job? Is it the money, the vacations, people that you work with? Is it all something else?
I think it's about, for me, I'm very people orientated, so I love to work with people and with others, and it gives me great pride when I do a piece of work. Maybe we're helping a company grow to the next level, or we're doing a leadership program or team development program. I'm speaking, and suddenly maybe somebody's eyes really open up, and they maybe learn something about themselves. I remember one program I did. It was a 3-day program, and it was with I'd done a lot of training around sales and leadership and team development with about 100 people in an organization.
We're just about to go towards a break, Chris,
so sorry.
I know you're going to share some really powerful stuff with us, so I think we'll save that for after the break. And thank you very much for sharing some fantastic insights with us about vision, committing, setting goals. Our listeners, please join us in a few moments after this very short break.
Stay tuned to Salaam Radio after this short ad break.
This Ramadan, Families Relief will be working on special Ramadan programs that need your help and support. Whether you would like to donate zakat, sadaqah, fitrana, or kafara, your Ramadan donations will help us distribute food and clean water to impoverished families in needy countries like Pakistan, Yemen, Syria, Gaza, and Africa. Help us to help them survive this Ramadan. Donate now on 0114 365 4454 or go online to familiesrelief.org.uk. Together, we can save lives.
Stars Day Nurseries are the largest childcare providers in Peterborough that have been graded outstanding by Ofsted because we nurture the potential in each child and aim to support and extend their learning and development through planned learning experiences. And currently we have free 15-hour places at all our locations in Peterborough. So for more information, call us on Peterborough 01733 312 612 or email us at info@starsdaynurseries.co.uk.
Practical car and van hire. Cars and vans to suit all requirements. Day hire, short-term and long-term hire. Couriers long-term hire available with cars from only £10 per day and vans from only £15 per day. All inclusive of insurance, road tax and maintenance. Call us on 01733 572277. Practical car and van hire, Manchester Square, Warrington.
Car trouble? Come to the experts. Car Care Centre, experts in MOT, repairs and servicing. Free diagnostic checks on all makes and models worth £50. Free pickup and delivery service. Car Care Centre, Unit 33, Manchester Square, Warrington. 01733 571694. Book your car in today.
Calling all dessert lovers. If you have a sweet tooth, then Creams Cafe, the UK's biggest and best Italian gelato chain, is the place to go in Peterborough. Established in 2008, Creams serve delicious desserts like waffles, crepes, sundaes and milkshakes, all in very comfortable and stylish surroundings. You can be sure there's something for everyone at Creams.
Gems and jewels. Wise sayings, interesting events, and moral lessons from Islamic history. They were trying to make him angry.
Ahnaf ibn Qais was famous for his forbearance and patience and for not becoming angry. Some of his companions gathered together and decided that they would try to do something to arouse his anger. One of them went to him proposing to marry his mother. Ahnaf said, "We are not rejecting you because we think your status is too low, nor because we lack the desire to be related to you through marriage. Rather, it is because my mother is old in age. She is almost 70, and you are a young man in the prime of your youth. You need an affectionate and fertile woman who will take from your manners and learn from your character." He then said to the young man, "Return to your people and inform them that you are not able to make me angry."
يا ربي بالمصطفى
Assalamu alaikum. Now we are going to play a part of Tafsir al-Quran by Numan Ali Khan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Salaam Radio on 106.2 FM and Inspire FM on 105.1 FM. My name is Shaz Nawaz and you're listening to Empower Hour, and we have here today with us Chris Cooper, who's an entrepreneur, business coach, author, radio host and professional speaker. If you would like to ask a question, please feel free to text or WhatsApp us on 077 45 278 978, or you can call the studio on 01733 602 133. I know you usually do participate and interact, and it's been a few weeks since we've been on air due to Ramadan, but please do get involved, and I know both Hasib and Chris would be delighted to ask and answer your questions. And I'll pass you over to my co-host Hasib.
Hi Chris, just before the short break, question asked yourself and before you, what's the most satisfying thing about your job? And we rudely interrupted you. So what would you think is the most satisfying about your job?
Good. So sorry. Yeah, I probably talked too much before the break, so sorry about that. I think what I was leading on to in that example was the most satisfying thing is probably when I get feedback that myself or my team have had a real big impact. And in this particular example, it was a number of years ago, so I think it's okay to mention it. But it was a CEO of a very sizable company. And we'd done a lot of work in the company, and then people started knocking on the board sort of door saying, you guys need some of this. So eventually I did a 2.5-day program with the board. And at the end of it, the CEO met me about 2 or 3 weeks later, and he said, I just want to give you some feedback. And I said, what's that? And he said, that was the third most significant experience of my life. And I said, oh, well, wow. I said, what were the first two? And he said, well, my mum died when I was young, and my brother died when I was young as well. And they were really sick. And then it was this experience with you, because it suddenly opened my eyes to what was really important. And sometimes, I had experiences when we've worked with people and we've had feedback and an impact like that, and seen the value of organizations kind of grow and develop out of this greater sense of awareness and connectedness and kindness and appreciation and working together and collaboration. And for me, that is what drives me when I see those kind of results and I get that warm feedback from an audience or from a group. I know that I've made a difference, and I think that's what's important in life, to leave the world having made a difference.
Also, Chris, regarding the job that you do, are there any limitations on your personal or social life because of the nature of your work?
Well, that's a really good question. I think I probably get a little bit of my social life through my work, actually. So a lot of some of my really good friends are people that I work with or connect with in some way. So sometimes that social life and work kind of merges, and a little bit like yourselves, I think one of the things that having a radio show, and my show's on Voice America, the Business Elevation show, is that I've been doing that for 6 years. I've done 250 episodes. I've met some wonderful people, and some of those have become really good friends. So my kids get to meet some really cool people, and we get the time sometimes to hang out with people who normally wouldn't have the opportunity to spend time with. And that's very inspiring for them to meet world champions and people like that, and they become or adventurers, and they become family friends, and we stay with them. And so I would say that through my work, actually my social life has actually been enhanced. But I'm also very careful that my kids are still young, they're 7 and 11, so I'm careful to manage my life such that I'm actually around to see them during those important years of their life, because one day they won't thank me for not having been there.
I know you're spot on there. I said, through your work, you met some special people. What the people that you've met so far? Who stands out? There might be more than one.
Yeah. Yes. So I mean, to give you, I love. I mentioned Meta Block a little bit earlier, and she really inspired me with that story. And she's been over here to stay, and she's coming again later in the year. And I took her into my kids' school and did a little talk and talked about setting a vision to the children, and I talked about the radio show and some of the things that I did. But then I said to them, I talked about Meta as one of my examples and said, could you imagine meeting someone who'd been a twice world champion? They're all going no. And then she came from behind a screen and came out, and they were just bowled over. But I think some of the people that have really inspired me, so I was quite inspired talking to Jack Canfield. Jack wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul series with Mark Victor Hansen, a collection of inspirational stories. And those guys got rejected 140 times by publishers to get that book published. And they still persisted and eventually underwrote some books And today, that series of books has sold over 500 million copies worldwide. And if you think Harry Potter's up to about 400 million, it gives you an idea of the scale. And when I first started interviewing Jack, I said, because I'd read a lot of his books, I said, I'm not normally nervous on the radio, but I'm just a little bit in awe. And he said to me, gee, Chris, don't worry about that. He said, I'm sometimes in awe myself. I said, when? He said, when I'm talking to Obama. So he was cool. I also liked, I met a guy called Marshall Thurber, and Marshall is an amazing guy with lots of businesses. He's an attorney. He's got lots of homes all over America and Hawaii and places like that. Really, really successful guy in his 70s. And what he really impressed me with was at the end of the interview, was he spent about half an hour after the interview was over just finding out about me, asking me all sorts of questions. And I'm thinking, why does this guy want to find out all about me? And I felt really, really special. And I said to him, Marshall, you've had an amazing life and you've experienced a lot of success and met a lot of very successful people. I said, what is the one thing that you have found makes the biggest difference? And he said, Chris, it's be more interesting than interested. Be more interested than interesting. And I realised that with me, he'd been really, more interested than trying to be interesting. And I think when we do take that time to find out more about other people, they really warm to us rather than look how great we are. So I think they've been very inspiring, but just loads and loads. I mean, I had the privilege to meet Mark Selby, the snooker player, who's people will know locally as the world champion recently, and we met him over a dinner. I'd interviewed actually the owner of the Leicester Riders, the founder, Kevin Routledge, and Kevin took us over and gave us some hospitality, and we had my son over on the basketball pitch at half time, and sat us with Mark, and I was so inspired by Mark and his story and his humbleness and the things that his attitude and the way he focused on his snooker, and I was just bowled over by him and his wife actually about the way that they conducted themselves and actually how interested they were in us. They weren't just trying to be interesting.
It's brilliant to hear. So before I pass it back to Shaz, as you have mentioned, in your website, you mentioned that you got experience in conducting business over 23 countries. How important is it to understand the cultural differences, such as the manners and customs in the different countries, to have a successful business?
Well, I didn't realise that I had that on my site, but I've certainly been involved with a number of countries, and I've run international teams when I was at United Biscuits. I had quite a corporate background. I had people in France and Belgium and Holland and Finland and Spain, and I think the cultural differences are absolutely fascinating, and I loved that about that sort of work. It probably the most exciting work I'd ever done when I would spend a lot of time in different markets. I think sometimes though I found that actually because my ignorance could actually be an asset. So for example, if I was going into the French market, I would find that the people really revered and didn't challenge the senior executives in the way that they would in the UK, and they would really revere them. But what I would do with my slightly ignorant approach was I'd actually go and knock on the MD's door and say hello, and I got to a stage where actually I was everybody was amazed that I could walk into the MD's office. He'd be delighted to see me, and I could sit down and have a conversation, around his desk. I remember at one stage I used to look after ingredients for 15 factories across Europe and had a team doing it. And I would find I have to go. If I went to talk to French flour millers, the first meeting was about talking about the market, and then you had to go and see them again, and they might talk a bit about the market, take you out for a fancy meal, talk a bit about the market, and then start to talk about their business with you. It was only on the third occasion you could ever do any business. But I just didn't have the time to do that. So I had to bypass the process, which would upset everybody, but we'd get a deal much quicker. So yeah, so sometimes my having to use your ignorance actually was quite helpful to get things done in a sort of quicker way, even though you left a few ruffled feathers. But sometimes, hey ho, you've got to get things done quickly.
That takes us very nicely, Chris, to your book, The Power to Get Things Done. And it is a fantastic book, and I'm not just saying that because you're being interviewed by me. It's one of the big things that most people struggle with, in terms of they have good intentions, but that last hurdle of taking action is what stops them. What inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, what inspired me was that it was something that became apparent to me as an issue a couple of years into running my own business. So what I realised, I think I was about 2 or 3 years in, and I'd had quite a successful, I had a corporate career, and I had a successful first business, which I was able to exit from after 3 years, procurement consultancy. But we'd grown it very quickly. It wasn't really my passion, and I was never at home, and various reasons. But I kind of went away from that, and I thought, I've achieved that, and I've had good success in my career. I can achieve anything. Yet 3 years into my business, I had a really bad year, and I was absolutely just beating myself up with frustration. And a guy from America called Dr. Stephen Levinson, who's a clinical psychologist, by some bizarre fluke, read something about me in America, and he contacted me and said could he have a chat. And he'd written this book with a terrible title for the UK. It was called Following Through.
Okay.
Which had been very successful in America, and but really it was a really interesting read. And what I realised in it was, by reading it, was that I'd been doing the things that I like to do, but I'd not been doing the things that I really needed to do to run a successful business. I've been avoiding some things. And of course, when you've got in a corporate company where you've got lots of partners, you hold each other to account, and you've got line management appraisals and meetings and that sort of thing. When you're on your own, you've just got you, and you can suddenly go, I've got all this freedom, it's fantastic. However, the freedom can be, a bit of an enemy when it comes to success, as can comfort. So we connected, and I started to put in place some of the principles in that book, and things started to change. And Steve and I became really good friends. And even though we've never met, he's based in Minnesota, we've met lots of times on Skype. And he asked me if I'd write the next book with him, which was aimed at small business owners, really. Although we got a great publisher in Penguin Random House, and they asked us to broaden it a bit so it has a greater appeal than just small business owners. But that's where it came from. And the title, The Power to Get Things Done, what I actually love is the brackets, whether you feel like it or not.
Yes.
Because I think that's the key to it, is that sometimes we know we've got to get things done, but we just can't bring ourselves to do it because we don't feel like it. And that was probably the issue that I faced at that point in time.
I think we all face that particular challenge with the best intentions in the world. How did you manage to secure a publisher like Penguin Random House? That must have been a challenge for you.
It was a sort of a dream that we had. Stephen had been published before. And he was really keen that we got published again. And I think there were some pros and cons with having a publisher or not. But I thought, if we're going to do it, let's find a great publisher. And just completely serendipitously, I'd met a really interesting lady called Judy Piatkas at an event. And Judy gave me her card. And Judy, my co-author, about a week or two later, said to me, what books do you really like off your bookshelf? And I looked, and there was Seth Godin's Tribes, and there was another book on kind of wealth creation, and they were both published by Piatkas Books. So incredibly, I had Judy's number. So I called her, and her publishing company had ended, but she said, what you've got to do, she'd sold it, but she said, what you've got to do is, that's the sort of book that would be really great in America. So, and they've got a much bigger market for self-development. So find a great agent. So we then found an agent that Jack Canfield had worked with, and I decided to approach them, and we really concentrated on writing a really great letter. So we sent one letter, and the agent came back within 4 or 5 days and said, "I just love that. I need that. Could I sign you up?" And then within 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, he came back with a deal from Perigee, which is part of an imprint of Penguin Random House. So incredibly, from one letter, we managed to get a publishing deal. Now, I think probably my radio show helped, and having a network of contacts and being a speaker, so those things added some value. But we incredibly managed it with one letter, which people tell me is pretty unheard of.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. And do you think if somebody out there is looking to write a book, would you suggest that they find a traditional publisher, or would you recommend that they self-publish?
That's a really good question. I think that, again, there are pros and cons with both. If you've got a really big network and you speak, and like you do, Shaz, and you talk to lots and lots of people, you can make more margin on selling your books at your events. However, having a publisher that can help you get into shops and stores, I think, also into getting on the online presence and doing some of the marketing, that can be very helpful too. The challenge, I think, with publishers is that they often tend to publish quite a few books, and they see initially which ones are going to work, and then they maybe publish 100 and put money behind just a very small number of them. So you can find that the books are not always that well supported, and you've got to do quite a lot yourself still. But I think if you can get a good publisher for a book, then I think that adds quite a lot of credibility and confidence, because so many people write books anyway. And then if you built a great network, that you can sell them, self-publish.
Good advice. Yeah.
Or if you just want to write one for your kids, you can quite easily self-publish now and write a book and leave it in the family as a bit of an heirloom or something like that. I've known people do that, not even want to sell it.
Absolutely.
So, put your thought.
And through writing the book and through your own experiences, what do you feel gets in the way of people achieving things or getting things done?
Well, I think that comes down to that point that I've said before. There's a number of things like maybe fear. There's things like a lack of discipline. I think sometimes too much freedom. There's so much opportunity today. You've got to look at the internet, and it's like you search for something. It's like a fire hydrant. Also just so much information coming at you, and things can be quite bewildering. So I think not getting clear about what you do want. But I think too much freedom can be a problem. It can be a problem with small businesses, to keep changing their direction and that sort of thing. I think just that gut feel of when I did the talk a few weeks ago to these sort of disadvantaged teenagers, they were coming up with all sorts. Alcohol can get in the way. Drugs can get in the way. Of course, those things will get in the way. So don't do them. So it can be a whole range of different things that stop us.
Okay. You're also a professional speaker, and a very good one too. How did you end up being a speaker, Chris?
Well, I think speaking, I always saw that as being something that would add value to my work, to be able to communicate and talk with groups. And it's different to be able to present in an organisation. And I used to have, I don't know if you ever had this, Shaz, but I used to have these dreams, and I would imagine lots of people in my mind, kind of cheering and smiling, and the only place I could be was on that stage. They were kind of looking up at me, but there was another side of me that was absolutely petrified by the idea. So I was living with these two, and so I realised that if it was kind of calling me in that way, I needed to, kind of to overcome challenges. So what I did about 7 years ago, I joined an organisation that you belong to, Shaz, and we met there, was the Professional Speaking Association. And what happened within a visit, I was suddenly asked, will you come and do a 10-minute speech in front of your regional group of speakers? And you go and do that, and you get feedback, and then you maybe enter a competition and get feedback, and then you practice a bit more, and then you start to do a few talks, and then over 7 years, I developed the skills and tested them to be able to go and stand out in front of audiences and engage and entertain, as well as share my messages. So I think it's a good tool in the toolbox, really.
I still have those dreams, Chris, about standing ovations, but usually when I go on stage, people start yawning, and I'm pulled off stage very quickly. So one of these days, I'm hoping somebody will give me a standing ovation.
That's not true. I think they were smiling for me and being happy and stuff. But the bizarre thing for me, I did one speaking event, and I'd had all these speakers that I'd kind of started to get to know, and they were my heroes. And I found myself that the sponsor of the event knew me, and I hadn't even got my book out then. He said, we need a session at the end of the day on accountability. And it was Super Congress, it was called. It was a big event, big TV, big screens and all that sort of thing. And he said to me, would you, there's a friend of mine called Derry Llewellyn Davis, you might know.
Yes, I do.
And Derry said to me, Chris, I'd love you to do this talk. I said, well, I haven't got a keynote. And he said, a 45-minute keynote. He said, it doesn't matter. You've got 3 months to create one. And he trusted me. And all these amazing speakers that I dreamed of maybe one day being on the stage went on first. And I was on at 4:15, I think it was, the last person. Not because I was the best, which you might imagine would normally go on last, but because it fitted naturally in the agenda. I had to sit there all day and watch it. But then when I eventually got on that stage, I practiced and rehearsed, and I stood on that stage with the headset on the big screens, and people at the end of it gave me such a great feedback and applause. I realised that what I dreamed about had actually just been in that dream, and it had happened. So it was a very moving moment. I had tears on the train on the way back in my eyes.
I can imagine that. So if somebody wants to become a speaker or is nervous of standing up and speaking, because as you know, that is a big hurdle, what would your advice be to them?
My advice would be to find an organisation where there's like-minded people that will be kind to you, but also push you along and cajole you, or find a speaker coach, people I'm sure like you, and sometimes I've done that as well, and have clients. So part of the process is helping them to speak. But find some good support and go on that journey and be prepared to go through the ups and downs, because it's a tough thing, isn't it, Shaz? Putting yourself out there in front of an audience, you're quite vulnerable, but it's a very rewarding thing when you do it. And sometimes still now I do speeches that I'm really proud of, and occasionally you can do the same speech somewhere else and it doesn't go down quite as well as you'd hoped, and you come down away feeling a bit sick.
That's me every single time, Chris.
You always learn, yeah. You always learn. Hey, I saw you speak once and I thought you were fantastic.
Thank you very much. You're very generous with your praise, quite clearly. You're also a radio host, and I know you've done lots of interviews. How many interviews have you done so far?
On the Voice America show, I've done 250 hours.
Wow. That's
252, actually.
So
unique interviews.
How did you wind up becoming a radio host, Chris?
Well, I started doing, as part of my business, doing some group calls where I brought people into kind of study groups, and I did them online as well. And then I started interviewing, getting really interesting guests and interviewing them online. And I realised I absolutely loved it. I loved finding out about them. And I would start getting an audience coming in to listen to those calls on a conference line or something like that. And then one day I had a really good guest on, but he didn't market the opportunity very well or support me in it. And 3 people out of 20 said they were going to join in. And then we'd send it out as a podcast, but 3 joined in. And I thought, oh God, I put a lot of work into this, and I'm not actually generating an awful lot of money out of it. I'd be better off doing other things for the business. What can I do really to take this to the next level? And Voice America, who do online live sort of radio and turn it into podcasts and things, have been probably the most established in America. They've been looking at my site and listened to some of the interviews and contacted me and said, would you like to do a trial with us and produce 13 shows? So I did that, and incredibly we had an amazing response. We broke a channel record for listeners in that first month for a new show, and I've done it ever since. So 6 years on nearly, and I'm still hosting the show, still learning from people and connecting, and I love it. And I leave on a Friday afternoon. I can be sitting in my shorts at home with a t-shirt on at the end of a busy working week, but I always leave at the end on a high because I've learned something. I've spoken to somebody that I admire and have a great conversation, and sometimes this great feedback comes back as well from the audiences, and it's quite addictive really. And all that content, because we do development programs for companies, all that content has been used so much by clients, and as parts of ideas. We're sharing great ideas and wisdom from different people while we're running programs, which also add value to our clients. It's hugely beneficial.
Absolutely, and thank you so much, Chris. It's been wonderful interviewing you. You've shared some fantastic insights about vision and goals and getting things done. Haseeb and I have really taken lots of notes ourselves, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers have enjoyed it too. Thank you everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week, 7 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Radio.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम अस्सलामु अलैकुम सामीन, मैं हूँ मुकर्रम अब्बास। सबसे पहले आज की हेडलाइंस पर एक नजर। अमेरिका की चीन की हदूद में मुदाखलत से अमेरिका और चीन के ताल्लुकात खराब हो सकते हैं। चीनी सदर का अमेरिकी सदर को टेलीफोन। शुमाली कोरिया ने एक और मिसाइल का कामयाब तजर्बा किया है। भारतीय वजीर आजम नरेंद्र मोदी आज इसराइल का दौरा कर रहे हैं। पनामा लीक्स केस की तफ्तीश के लिए JIT ने बरतानिया की कानूनी फिर्म की खिदमात हासिल कर ली हैं। बरतानिया में 2008 के बाद से अब तक नर्सिंग का पेशा छोड़ने के रुझान में खतरनाक हद तक इजाफा। शिद्दत पसंद तंजीम बोको हराम का नाइजर में हमला, 9 अफराद हलाक, दर्जनों अगवा। और पाकिस्तान की चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी की फातेह क्रिकेट टीम आज वजीर आजम नवाज शरीफ से मुलाकात करेगी। और अब इन खबरों की तफसील। बरतानिया में 2008 के बाद से पहली बार मुलाजमत हासिल करने वाली नर्सों के मुकाबले में पेशा छोड़कर चली जाने वालों की तादाद बढ़ गई है। नर्सिंग एंड मिडवाइफरी काउंसिल का कहना है कि इस साल मार्च में बरतानिया में रजिस्टर्ड होने वालों की तादाद 6,90,773 से कम होकर 1,783 रह गई है। कमी के रुझान की वजह बरतानवी वर्कर्स का लबो लहजा है। भारत के वजीर आजम नरेंद्र मोदी भारत और इसराइल के सफारती ताल्लुकात के कयाम की 25वीं सालगिरह पर आज इसराइल के दौरा पर रवाना हो रहे हैं। वो इसराइल का दौरा करने वाले भारत के पहले वजीर आजम होंगे। मोदी के इस दौरे को इसराइल में तारीखी दौरा करार दिया जा रहा है। वजीर आजम नरेंद्र मोदी तल अबीब के हवाई अड्डे पर पहुंचेंगे, जहां उनका शानदार इस्तकबाल किया जाएगा। चीन के सदर शी जिनपिंग ने अमेरिकी सदर डोनाल्ड ट्रंप से टेलीफोन पर बात करके बहीरा जनूबी चीन में अमेरिकी बहरी बेड़े के मुतनाज़ा जजीरे के करीब मौजूदगी पर एहतजाज किया है। दोनों रहनुमाओं की टेलीफोन पर बातचीत के बाद चीन के सरकारी जराये के मुताबिक सदर शी जिनपिंग ने अमेरिकी सदर डोनाल्ड ट्रंप को बताया है कि मनफी मुहर्रकात अमेरिका और चीन ताल्लुकात को मुतासर कर रहे हैं। जनूबी कोरिया ने इल्जाम आयद किया है कि शुमाली कोरिया ने एक और मिसाइल का तजुर्बा किया है। जनूबी कोरिया के मुताबिक ये बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल का एक और नया कामयाब तजुर्बा है। वाज़ेह है कि शुमाली कोरिया की जानिब से आए दिन मिसाइल तजुर्बात की इतलात आती रहती हैं, जिससे खित्ते में तनाव की कैफियत तारी रहती है। नाइजीरिया में फाल शिद्दत पसंद ग्रुप बोको हराम के जंगजुओं ने हमसाया मुल्क नाइजर में कार्रवाई करते हुए 9 अफराद को हलाक कर दिया है, जबकि दर्जनों को अगवा कर लिया है। बताया गया है कि अगवा किए जाने वाले अफराद की तादाद 40 है, जिनमें खवातीन और बच्चे भी शामिल हैं। चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी की फातेह कौमी क्रिकेट टीम आज वजीर आजम मियां नवाज शरीफ से मुलाकात करेगी। जराये के मुताबिक ICC चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी जीतने वाली क्रिकेट टीम के एजाज में आज वजीर आजम हाउस में खसूसी तकरीब मुनक्किद होगी। वजीर आजम नवाज शरीफ चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी की फातेह टीम से मुलाकात करेंगे और उन्हें तारीखी फतह पर मुबारकबाद देंगे। वजीर आजम खिलाड़ियों में ऐलान करदा इनामी रकूम भी तकसीम करेंगे। सामीन, ये थी इस वक्त तक की अपडेट्स। मजीद अपडेट्स के साथ आपकी खिदमत में दोबारा हाजिर होंगे। तब तक के लिए अल्लाह हाफिज।
Local, national and international news. This is Salaam Radio.
If you want to learn about Islam and Muslims, stay tuned to Salaam Radio 106.2 FM.
ताजदारे हरम, ताजदारे हरम हो निगाहे करम, ताजदारे हरम हो निगाहे करम, ताजदारे हरम हो निगाहे करम। हम गरीबों के दिन भी संवर जाएंगे, ताजदारे हरम हो निगाहे करम, ताजदार حرم ہو نگاہ کرم